Hello everybody, my friends, my countrymen, my patriot. Welcome back to Literature and Robes. This is Jared. I'll be your book guy, talking about the book things, about the books in the Library Trilogy.
You got to get better at this part of the job.
That isn't quite finished yet, but that's what we're here to talk about today. We have book 2, the book that broke the world. I personally, I'm just going to pull this down real quick. It's just a lovely cover. Very, very detailed. It's very much in line with the first one, the book Wouldn't Burn. These are written by Mark Lawrence. I've done a few Mark Lawrence reviews lately. Obviously, I have kind of a liking for Mr. Lawrence. Here's his other one. The illustrations on these books are created by Tom Roberts, and it's very, very creative stuff. I mean, you can really, really kind of lose yourself within the picture. It's the Library Trilogy. As you can see, it's a very, very vast piece of architecture. The library goes on forever.
Forever, forever, ever, forever, ever.
And it's kind of part of the mystery of all these books. The world building is vast, and at times in the books it feels very closed in, and other times it feels wide open. And you really get that sense of being closed in and also disturbed by almost having too much space. Mark Lawrence is becoming a better writer. I can just tell from the second book, the way his prose is coming out. Some of the concepts, the themes, things in these books are just, he really works and massages through them, almost to a point where it takes away from the telling of the story. Well, I mean, he's dealing with a vast scale of time, traveling through time, forward, backward. He's really experiments with this whole time travel thing in a lot of his books. And this library is just, it's so full of mystery, and he's trying to open it up, trying to obviously add to the mystery that he created in the first book, the book that wouldn't burn. So the world kind of opens up a little bit in the second entry, but it doesn't quite get to where you're going to get any more answers about how this place came about. It just kind of furthers the story a little bit. It is a shorter book than the first book. As you know from if you've read the first one, you would know that there's some things left out, some loose threads, and so the second book is trying to find out if those threads are going to come back together. It's a good book. It introduces some new types of characters, new types of world building things, new aspects into this library, the future, the present, the past, and the characters are also kind of interesting because Mark Lawrence works with humans, and we all know humans, it can be erratic, unpredictable, self-serving.
I get it, fine, I get it, fine.
Then he has a couple other human type characters. They are humanoid, I guess you would say. They seem to have fur, or their outer layer of skin is different than human skin. There's also creatures that are apparently viewed as more important or more complex than humans, whereas there's other characters that are less complex, and there's sort of a caste society. However, there's this us versus them mentality that I think Mark Lawrence is really trying to paint with these books. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is a powerful thing to have when other people may not have it, especially if it's very rare, specific. Not everybody has access to it. Clearly, someone's going to come away with an advantage. A lot of this in this big, huge library, you could virtually find anything you wanted to. The second book kind of delves into that, like the dynamics of power and how nothing is really quite secure.
Power is mine, bitches.
Mark Lawrence is really tackling some hard themes, I think, in these books. The second book wasn't like filled with action or anything like that. It was more character work, trying to find out motivations a little more in depth, looking into how these characters kind of perceive this theme of power and wisdom and knowledge. But a lot of what we see in the book is they're still just trying to figure out why this stuff is there in the first place? Should it be something that's kept hidden, or something that is shared with the rest of the world, shared with a certain aspect of the world, maybe shared with a certain society of the humanoid caste system? Some of the information is books that are written by those in different species, I guess you would say. So it's fascinating. It's hard to kind of latch onto these alien humanoid beings because their motivations seem kind of surface, but there are relationships between the different species, the different humanoid groups, and some of them are a little more than you would think, and some of them are very surface, and so that creates tension. And obviously in society, groups often get messy, but individuals, usually you can find some progress. Even if you understand that you don't like someone one-to-one, you can still work with them. You just know what buttons to push and what buttons not to push. So
don't you get it? You gotta use reverse psychology. That sounds too complicated. Okay, don't use reverse psychology. All right, I will.
It's a good story. It's very different. I think Mark Lawrence has really opened the door to some new ideas while using and borrowing from his older ideas as well. Mark Lawrence is a fascinating person on a whole. He's very scientific as an author. Listening to his interviews, he's often somebody who is always thinking of the next story, which I have to admire that. I would love to be able to write my own materials, my own stories, but just all the work that goes into it, knowing how something is going to end, what motivations are pure, what aren't, are we doing anything MacGuffin-y, and we're just trying to pull things out of the air. Some people write and just kind of stream of consciousness, while others have outlines and plans. It's just an interesting process, and no one author does it the same.
That's true.
But I really enjoy Mark Lawrence. I think he's trying to tackle tough ideas. I think he writes very well. Again, his prose, over time, it gets better and better, I think. And his ideas become a little more complex. So I've really enjoyed his Book of the Ancestor trilogy and whatnot, which actually reminds me a little bit of that Nevernight Chronicle. Check the other video that I read as well. So these stories are not new to him. He tells whatever story Mark Lawrence wants to tell. He generally does a pretty good job of it. So it just depends upon the reader or whether or not they like it or not, like the subject matter, whatnot. So, but I'm kind of a fan of Mark Lawrence. I really enjoy his style, enjoy his great plot twists and good character work. So I recommend picking them up. Some people are purists and want to wait until the trilogy is finished before they pick up. Fair enough. I understand that, but I think this is probably one of Mark's most creative writing endeavors that he's taken. So I highly recommend it. The book itself, I give, I'm going to say 3.8 robes out of 5. The first book, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, I definitely gave that one at least like a 4.4 out of 5 robes, because it was just so original, so different, so new coming into it, and having that kind of backup experience. I think maybe it didn't feel as new or fresh in the second book. The second book was shorter. It felt kind of like he was trying to prepare for perhaps his third book, so it serves its purpose. You can't get to the third book without having a second book. I was actually kind of curious to maybe read book 1 into book 2. I feel like the two of them feel like one story, and it may end a little differently than the first book, but I love it. I really enjoyed the books. I recommend it. They're fun reads, especially if you like libraries and that kind of thing. It's almost like a what do they call that? Dark academia. It's kind of like dark academia, which is another fantasy genre where it relies on words, libraries, old tomes. It's very related to literature. R.F. Kuang has a book called Babel that really I enjoyed a lot. That was from this dark academia category. But yeah, Mark Lawrence, good stuff. I can't wait for the next book to come out. Probably be in 2025. We'll see what happens. So yeah, thank you everyone for stopping in. Please leave a comment in the comments below if you have any thoughts about how this book went. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys taking time to watch. And remember, keep reading.